You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Left corner, Rollins driving Nemhart. Strong move into the lane, but Turner knocked it away. And here comes Halliburton down the right side to the corner. Mathurin hits a three in front of his own bench. Portis with the rebound, slapped out of his hands. Here comes Mathurin, up the floor for a two-hand top and slam. We move down to the 2-minute mark as Halliburton with 6 to shoot, dances against Antetokounmpo, gives to Turner, 3 to shoot, step back 3, left edge, dagger, dagger. Turner hits his 4th 3 of the game. Milwaukee takes a timeout. The crowd recognizing the inevitability of the result, rising to its feet. Final score, the Indiana Pacers 117, the Milwaukee Bucks 98.
If you look at some of the better tight ends in this league, and they come from everywhere. Kelsey was a 3. Andrews was a 3. Kittle was a 5. Like, they come from everywhere. Bowers was a 1 last year. Like, they come from everywhere. But it's a good class, and we think there's some good depth in this class. Just history will tell you that there's a few things that come into play. 1, character. Okay, did we miss the character of the player? 2, instincts. And it's the hardest one to evaluate. Can he play the game outside the X's and O's? Like, there's the X's and O's that the coaches draw up, and then what are they going to do outside of that? How are they going to perform outside of because that's the game. The X's and O's are great, but at the end of the day, it's what happens outside of those X's and O's.
Yeah, well, how about some wins and some production and all? Gee, I know. Year number 9, and we'll find out what the Colts end up doing in round number 1 coming up on Thursday. It is a busy week. That is Chris Ballard a little bit earlier today when he met with the local media regarding the 2025 draft. And Mark Boyle, the Pacer Radio Network. We've got a lot to talk about in terms of that first-round series with the Bucks and the Pacers. And the Pacers a 117-98 win over the Bucks on Saturday. Thank you for joining us on this Monday. Believe me, we have a ton to get to over the course of the afternoon. And yeah, you've asked, so many of you have. Rick Venturi joins this show with his draft breakdown coming up on Thursday at 4 o'clock. Now, you're going to have ample opportunity to join me out beginning on Wednesday, Behringer Southside, that's South Meridian. About, a quarter of a mile south of Raymond. I think it's called the Old South Side right there, Pleasant Run Parkway and Meridian. It is a staple for decades, and I cannot be more happy that for the first time, we're going to do a show from Behringer's. And what's interesting about it, I'm going to have to get Matt Taylor to come out on Wednesday, because I remember back during COVID when we were all in lockdown and not doing what we normally did, not even in lockdown in this case, but certainly not living in the world of normalcy at that moment. And Matt did a lot of his work at Behringer's. We had talked about that. It is a decades awesome establishment. And we'll first time that up coming up on Wednesday on this show. Taylor's Pub, Nora, Heaven Hill Distillery, that is obviously Larceny Bourbon, Evan Williams, and Elijah Craig, all the products, as we'll have a tavern tour stop at Taylor's. Nora, Thursday, the Indy Ignite at the Fishers Event Center coming up on Friday, beginning at 3. So, yeah, we have a ton to get to over the course of the week. So, I want to go back to Saturday, and we'll get all your thoughts in today because I did leave you some time to have thoughts on this playoff series, to have thoughts as far as the draft is concerned. There is a lot to get to. But I love the way the Pacers came out. Chris Hagan and I had this conversation last night on Fox 59. And if you remember going back to last week, a lot of the things that I called for that had to occur and that game one did. I was apprehensive about it. I didn't like the 1 o'clock start, although I think once I was there and got to watch it, it seemed pretty all right, especially with the JMV takeover afterwards. So the 1 o'clock start, okay. And everything's much better when you win. I mean, you feel much better. If you're injured, you're not so injured. If you're sore, you're not so sore. I mean, everything is brighter when you win. Everything in basketball is more awesome when you knock down shots. And that's exactly what the Pacers did. You look across the board at the way this team shot it in terms of 52% for the game, 38% from distance. But that wasn't it. The fast break is something we had talked about. You run a team that, simply put, is not built to run. Fast break points, 22-5. Nailed it. Bench play, outstanding. We talked about T.J. McConnell regaining old form. McConnell, 11 points off the bench. 5 of 7 shooting. When Tyrese Halliburton left, McConnell helped orchestrate. Jarris Walker. Benedict Mathurin. When you think about a guy that had to miss the postseason last year, and everybody but us forgot about the fact that he was not a part of it. And we talked on Friday's show about how he was chomping at the bit to get back. And clearly, he was chomping at the bit to get back. He came out there, and it was almost like he had to settle himself down a little bit. And I bet you he'd want to shoot it better. Because among the Pacers that shot the basketball, he was not at the top of the list. But the activity, the energy, that was there. The rebounding. Could anybody notice that it was all 5 going to the defensive glass? Everybody was there. Everybody was there, and then once they got it, they took off and ran. The Bucks, I think I lost count, but I think it stayed at 8 offensive rebounds. That's exactly what you want. They're not great at it, but that's how you start a fire. That's how a team can hang, especially a team that has Giannis on their side, who is going to get his and then some. There's just really nothing you can do about that. That brings me to this. Defensively, the way that they tried to put pressure, and if you watch my social media account X yesterday, so I had a video. I was with Tommy Sutton of Coach's Tavern at the game on Saturday. Shout out to Tommy S. for inviting me. It was a great time. Loved it. But I had a couple of different video shots behind the basket of Giannis and the time that he takes. And, yeah, it does drive me nuts because it's stinking forever. I mean, you talk about reviews and constant stoppages in play that deflates things. Yeah, you go on how long it takes him to get involved in shooting like 15 free throws. It's great because he missed a lot of them. I mean, hell, he was barely above 60%. Check that, I'm sorry, above 50%. That's exactly playing into the Pacers' hand. But a couple of things that they did. And I'll highlight a player and the way that they played defensively. Oftentimes, especially for those of you out there that are dorks and all you do is read a box score, I've dealt with that over the years. Giannis, 36 points, 12 rebounds. Obviously, one of the better players in the NBA, that's what he's going to get. Now, oftentimes I don't point to this. I will under these circumstances. He was minus 18 in plus and minus. But the thing that stands out is he had been passing out of the double teams or when teams shade to him, because you have to. He's an unstoppable force. As well as we have seen him down the stretch of this regular season in his career. I'm not going to suggest he's Jokic-like, but his distribution has been there. He's had triple doubles. He's had a high assist total. And that's one thing you didn't want. It's one thing to have him get 36, but if you can hold everybody else down, that's how you win a game. And again, I'll highlight a player for this, but the team defensively, I thought absolutely awesome and what they tried to do to not just stop Giannis, because you can't, but to make sure that it was everybody else that was trying to beat you. Taurean Prince, 0 points. Kyle Kuzma, 0.0.0. He had a Mr. Blutarski type of stat line on Saturday. Awful. 0.0 across the board. It was almost like he was like you. He didn't play. You look at their starting lineup, they had 36 for Giannis. They had 14 everywhere else. That's not going to get it done. You know, I had mentioned Gary Trent Jr. off the bench had been a thorn for the Pacers this season. He did continue to be a thorn without question. Now, we'll see if they make an adjustment. Obviously, the biggest adjustment, and I would absolutely suggest that Damian Lillard is going to play coming up tomorrow night. I would almost count on it. Doc Rivers is going to be coy. You may not say anything, but you have to count it because, one, if you come off the bench and you yap, and you're over there looking like you're on the Cosby Show or A Different World or a Cross Colors outfit from the early 1990s, then you have to feel that you're ready. Because otherwise, you just sit there and shut up. Otherwise, you sit there and you go, well, wait a minute, my team's not performing right now. And it's funny because always the counter is, well, Tyrese Halliburton only talks when he is up. Hey, where do these people understand when you play basketball? Not often, if ever, do you hear anybody that talks blank when they're losing. I think the exception to the rule is like the Milwaukee Bucks. They're the only team out there that talks junk when they lose. Bobby Portis is the only guy out there that scores 4 more points than me in a game and talks junk and starts junk when he loses. That's not how it works. The talking normally comes, if you're Larry Bird, before it actually happens. That's legendary. But the talking normally happens or is created through positivity, through makes, through productivity, through winning. Has anybody ever noticed that? I mean, what planet are we talking about here? It doesn't matter. The biggest thing to me in that game on Saturday was the performance, because it started and really did finish on both ends with Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard was playoff Nembhard. That's what you got to know a year ago. That's why you suggest he is such an important piece. And then there are times during the regular season where people say, oh, JMV, you don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Gonzaga right here, you don't know anything. And then you get to a circumstance like this and you find out just how effective and how important he is. That really does hold together the entire works. And that's exactly what he did in game number 1. Offensively, he took charge. You know what he did? He set a tone with his toughness and his strength in a similar capacity as what Giannis does. Giannis initiates every single piece of the contact. The first thing he does is travel, and then he initiates it. So he travels, and then he initiates the contact. Andrew Nembhard initiated the contact offensively. He started it. And if that's how the game's going to be whistled, then by God, that's how the game is going to be whistled. The Pacers went out there with an aggressive, I don't even think it was a response or a reaction. It was a tone setter. Why? Because they knew exactly what they were going to be dealing with, especially in one individual player in Giannis. Nobody at all is downplaying how fantastic he is as a talent. He is. But he's going to go out there, he's going to lower the shoulder, he's going to initiate the contact after traveling every single time. That's exactly what Andrew Nembhard did. So offensively, I thought, especially early on, that was everything that set the tone. He set the tone for the Pacers. But if you were to go back and watch this game, like my mom called me yesterday and said, I've watched this game and Chris and Quinn and JJ and Eddie Gill about 9 times. I think she was watching the rebroadcast. And she was talking about Nembhard. And believe me, I sit there and listen because I go, wow, you are kind of right about this. She was talking about him defensively. And sometimes I'm astonished. Sometimes she's just kind of pissy, right? But sometimes I'm astonished at what she does notice of how he comes off his man and was digging on Giannis or playing the passing lane off the ball. I thought he set the tone defensively as well. You look back on it and what he did defensively. What he started out the game against Ryan Rollins, I think, right? But you saw him come off the ball. And, man, he was always in the right spot. You know how difficult it is? I don't even care if you do this as a profession. How difficult it is. And I talk about orchestrating and an orchestra and whatever. But how difficult it is. It's almost like a band coming up with a song. I mean, everybody's got to play their own role, but you have to know where everybody is at every single time. You have to hit all your marks. And if you watch the way this defense moved around, the way that it shaded toward Giannis and the way that those that were off of that detail shaded toward where they knew the ball was going to go. And that's what I mentioned. What they did, and I said this to Jake a little bit earlier, I thought that they made Giannis as a passer or as a creator in his own right, which certainly he has been over the end of this regular season. They made him make those quicker decisions. And you're going to ask me, what do you mean by that? They made him make those decisions in motion, meaning they didn't throw it into him or they didn't allow him to back it down so he could just look over the defense and pick and choose where he was going to throw it for a wide open shot. They made him, and that's really what either full court pressure or mostly close to full court pressure can do. And when they set those high ball screens, you saw oftentimes, especially Nembhard early on, he got over the top of it. But it allows you to dictate the terms defensively. And I know you're going to say, well, wait a minute, he had 36. Hey, listen, he is great. Nobody disputes that. But you can't allow anybody else on this team to get going. That's what's going to be so important upon the return of Damian Lillard, because they absolutely have to have that. Have to. And I'm sure they're going to get it. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer, whatever. But the way that the Pacers tried to dictate and then predict, anticipate where the ball was going defensively, I don't know if you could do it much better than that. We talked about this team defensively. Remember a year ago, it was all about offense. You got to score a bunch and then hold on. Hey, hold on tight defensively. You got to go out there and put the pressure on offensively. What they did on Saturday, they did that. The pressure was on offensively. Every opportunity they had, they took that and ran with it, literally. 22-5 in fast break points. Zero way Milwaukee wants to play in that fashion because they can't. They're not good at it. But then on the defensive end, and I'll give credit to Rick Carlisle, I'll give credit to the staff. We talked about this before. The ball handlers, when off-the-ball defenders come off and then they dig at ball handlers. We talked about that defensively over the course of the year. What they did with Giannis a couple of different times is once he got into his spinning motion, that's when the defensive help came over and they were digging on him as well. I just thought defensively, with what Rick Carlisle and his staff put together, was masterful. And then I thought how this team executed that. And I mean really everybody, but it started with Andrew Nembhard, was absolutely outstanding. That was a thing of beauty. Now, can you keep it up coming up tomorrow night? We shall see. But you go back and you watch that, and it was absolutely amazing. Because you could tell. And I'm not a film watcher either, but just watching it, it was just a masterful performance. You know, what they did defensively. All right, we'll talk about that and more. And Andrew Nembhard, listen, Siakam had 25, big deal. Miles, and I say a big deal. Yes, it was a big deal. Miles, 19, big deal. You know, what they got in their bench, a big deal. But Andrew Nembhard, he set the tone on both ends of the floor Saturday in Game 1. He set the tone in aggressive behavior, physicality, both offensively and defensively. And again, I would, if you want to go back and watch it again, it was some amazing stuff. And hell, half the time somebody's got to like point out, hey, wait a minute, defense. All right, defense. I thought that was outstanding. I thought the Pacers had played, I mentioned this to Hagan last night on Fox 59 Overtime. That was the best I think I've seen them play in forever. And you can tell that they were coached up. They were coached up to go after the board. I mean, all five going to the defensive glass. And that's something that Chad Buchanan and I had talked about a number of times, too. You don't have to be the best, I should say, the best rebounding team out there. But everybody has to go, everybody can help just a little bit. They won the rebounding battle. Milwaukee, I think, had one offensive board in the first half, 8 total during the game, and never got as close, certainly in the second half, as 12 points. It's exactly how you start a series. Now, as Rick Carlisle mentioned after the game, monumentally more difficult tomorrow night is going to be, especially if you get the return of Damian Lillard. Now, here's what you don't want. Either way, you don't want to give this up, give this back, and then have a Game 3 in Milwaukee coming up on Friday night where Lillard plays in front of the hometown fans for the first time when things are even. You don't want that. That can't happen. And more of last night, I checked that Saturday afternoon, I should say. I don't know where last night came from. But more of Saturday afternoon, because I thought that really on both ends was about as good at times as you're going to see. And what's funny about it is you can still improve. Like Tyrese Halliburton had 10 points. He was 3 of 13 from the floor. Zip for 7 from distance. But he did orchestrate. So better game from him, you would expect. And a Pacer team up 1-zip best of 7 first-round series with the Bucks. Game 2 coming up tomorrow night. Full discussion on that's on the way with Eddie Gill coming up here at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. The Colts in the draft, and you heard a little bit earlier Chris Ballard, Colts general manager, regarding that. And also a little bit more conversation in depth about the quarterback position. It's funny, he had mentioned, I believe if you're going to ask me, I'm paraphrasing here, his prediction is that you're going to see production out of them both on the field this year. Well, of course, because one guy's not going to stay out there long enough before the other guy is out there. And then they'll go back to the first guy. I mean, that's what we've seen, of course. That's what we've seen. And if you're going to say, well, wait a minute, can you not be a little bit more uplifting? You've got to see to believe here. And believe me, that is 100% a fair statement. That's a fair assessment. They know that. So everything that they say right now, we will take and go, all right, whatever, because you have to see it. We have heard it over and over and over again. It's like playing tic-tac-toe or checkers or riding on the merry-go-round. You know where you're going. This has to be different than all that. What they have to do is prove it. So, yeah, I would absolutely guarantee we're going to see both quarterbacks. And I absolutely guarantee that both quarterbacks will play a role this season because they always have, especially in the last 3. May not be a great role, but they played a role. Get to that coming up a little bit later on with Stephen Holder in the 5 o'clock hour. James, nothing to give away this week, do we? What in the hell? But we are on the road not once, not twice, but 3 times. James, before the break, I don't know anything about it, but you watched WrestleMania 2025, not just last night, but this weekend. Is this too much? You don't need 2 days of this crap, do we? 2 days?
I honestly think 2 days at this point is pretty good because
pretty good.
It used to be 1 day, and it would be way too much for 1 day. It'd be like an 8-hour broadcast, and people were exhausted by the end of the show. The crowd was exhausted by the main event. So splitting it up into 2 days has actually been a much better decision for WWE.
Yeah. 2 days, though, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, listen, I don't know enough, but whatever entertains. 2 days entertained you? So did you how many hours are 2 days worth of WrestleMania?
So it's overall each broadcast was about 4 hours long. So it started at 7, went off the air around 11. So total of 8 hours split between 2 days.
That's a lot of wrestling there, buddy.
Yeah.
So, James, all right, any big updates from WrestleMania?
John Cena won his 17th world title. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't already somehow seen that. But it was a decent WrestleMania, sort of okay. Not as good as last year's. Not as good as last year's for sure. But I had a good time watching it for the most part.
That's James right there. WrestleMania 2025 weekend update. Ian writes this. Hey, what are your thoughts on Evan Turner's crash out over the Pacers? Evan Turner, a couple of days ago, said, Indy, Dame can beat up Tyrese with a bad calf. Don't at me. I don't know why anybody would consider anything Evan Turner said. Listen, we'll see, right? We'll see with a bad calf coming off after a blood clot, not playing for. We'll see. But Evan Turner's time here, was it not among some of the worst? Who gives a damn what Evan Turner has to say? Not even those around Evan Turner give a crap about what Evan Turner has to say. I guess that would be my advice. But I will say this. We'll see. Tyrese, offensively, you're going to need his individual offensive output beyond getting everybody else involved. He's going to have to be able to score. He's going to have to shoot it better. I love the overall team performance, and it's fortunate that they didn't really need that. But at some point, you're gonna. So I don't know if that makes Evan Turner right. And I guess I'm a little skeptical because I really don't give a damn what Evan Turner has to say in the first place. And I think we all should abide by my simple rule. Who gives a crap what Evan Turner has to say? Because his time here sucked. And so did he. All right, quick break. We'll come back from that. Stephen Holder, Eddie Gill, me and you, rest of the way. Game 2 coming up tomorrow. By the way, shout out to you fans. You guys were awesome. I was a little bit concerned. 1 o'clock on a Saturday. You guys going to be geared up, juiced, and ready to go? Outstanding crowd. Outstanding. Tommy S., thank you for taking me too. I had many beers. I had one hellaciously awesome time with you at the game. But I thought the crowd, and see, that's what you have to have. Man, the crowd plays such a significant role. It takes away from the visiting team when things aren't going well. And I hate to put it this way, but I'm going to put it in terms where dudes understand. Dudes, are you ready? It pumps your nads if you're playing. You guys know the term pumps your nads? You know how important pump nads are? Saw that on Saturday. I was a little concerned, but man, fan base brought it. Well done. Game 2 coming up tomorrow night. Eddie Gill, Stephen Holder. Quick break. We'll come back. The stream, the app, HD Radio, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Seriously, your thoughts and more. Do not go anywhere on this Monday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
with JMV.
If somebody gets in your face and calls you a I want you to be nice.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, Behringer's coming up on Wednesday. My first time doing a live show there. I can't wait. I've been there a number of times, but a live show. Hey, by the way, too, send something to Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts. Have him join us. He loves that place. South Meridian, that's on Wednesday. We have back-to-back-to-back live shows for you. So plenty of opportunities to join us. Rex writes this, does Cambridge serve cottage cheese? I don't know, but they do serve alcohol. I do know that, Rex. See, I sidestep everything else just to make sure I have room left in my diet for alcohol. It's from Dave at JMV. The first time they call Nembhard for lowering his shoulder into the defender, I would expect Carlisle to lose his mind and run to the center of the circle to demand the same call against Giannis. Nembhard set the tone on both ends. And I don't know if you're a tape watcher, and I am not. Like my 79-year-old mom says, oh, he was so good defensively. I go, okay, wait a minute. Because she watched the game. Yeah, I don't know. I think she watched the game 3 times, at least twice, because she was watching it again yesterday. I think they played the tape stuff back on Pacers TV. And she had pointed that out, so then I went back and watched it. I said, okay. But really, both ends. It's one thing to have your shot, and that makes everything better. Your shot going down makes, everything better. There may be only one situation where a made shot, maybe if it's, and you can look at this, I think, both ways. If it's somebody that you really don't want to shoot a lot, and then they get that good feeling about seeing a shot go down, that can lead to a bad place or a bad spot. But normally you're still getting something, out of somebody with any make. I'm not talking about Nembhard in this case, but just shooting the basketball. I'm talking in terms of how good that makes anybody feel. But then you have more energy on both ends. So it wasn't that with Nembhard. You could tell that this was a part of the plan. I would absolutely love to know. Love to know when they were going over their plans and what they wanted to do, their diagrams, their outlines defensively, what they had talked about. But, man, you could see it. These quick, on-the-move decisions that they were forcing Giannis into, whoever came up with those ideas, now, again, granted, if the other team stinks and can't shoot, that makes your defense look a lot better. But I just thought you could tell the plan of attack defensively. Even in a game where Giannis, their star, goes for 36. And even in a game where afterwards everybody, I'd made a video about him taking an hour to shoot free throws, 15 of them. And I guess I should have added in that it was a good thing because, he only shot 60% or under, even if that. But it does make the game long. And I'm sorry, he does initiate contact. And oftentimes in the NBA, you can do that. But he does get a soft whistle. And I don't even care if we're talking about a game in which the Pacers were aggressive or overly aggressive on him. He will get a soft whistle. He will get the brush by foul call. The brush by and one foul call. And I know you're forced into that situation because he is just an absolute load to deal with. He can basically get to the basket whenever he wants. But he wasn't what he has been recently. Even going for 36 and 15? And nobody else got going. That's why Lillard is going to be, and I'm not telling anybody out there what they don't already know, such a big damn deal upon his return. And I would suggest that return is on the inbound tomorrow night. We shall see. 239-1070 is the number. More on that, the Colts draft. Stephen Holder, Eddie Gill still to come. Do not go anywhere. And Cameron is up first today. Hello, Cameron. How are you?
Hey, John. Appreciate it.
You got it, Cameron.
Good. I was I was in the building also on Saturday, and I think there's a few things about this series. I just think the Pacers are an absolute nightmare matchup for the Bucks, and it's a good thing for us because just like last year, Brook Lopez, they might run him out of Milwaukee after this series because I don't know how he's going to be able to stay on the floor. Miles Turner can literally destroy this series by himself with those pick and pops. I know we saw it a little bit. I mean, he opened up the game on Saturday with a 3. And then the second thing, just like with Portis missing the last couple months, you could tell all his shots just seemed kind of off and like short. But the Pacers are the worst team, I feel like, to try to come back to play against after not playing for months. So bring on Dame.
Yeah.
I mean, Nembhard's going to be up in his grill. I think Nembhard has to run him around 24/7 because that's who he's probably going to be guarding. And I just think the Pacers caused so many problems for Milwaukee, just like matchup-wise.
The thing about that, though, with Nembhard, I love how he plays off-the-ball defense. And if you're guarding Lillard, you're not going to do that. That's the thing. And I mentioned this a couple of different times. If you go back and watch, or if you were there live like you were, Cameron, and watched, he was so good off the ball defending. It was like he anticipated or was at least coached up to know, where that pass was going to go coming out of Giannis's hand. So he would go off his guy, and then they had a couple of different steals there in the first half to where I thought that was awesome. And obviously that is problematic when you're playing somebody like Lillard. You can get away with that with Ryan Rollins, but Lillard is different altogether. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust what they did in game number 1 with the addition at some point, and maybe even tomorrow night of Lillard being back in the lineup for the Bucks.
Yeah, I definitely think what you would probably see from them is like with Neesmith or Nembhard, they're going to pick Dame up probably full court every single possession.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I will say real quick is I know Giannis had a hell of a game, but if you're a Pacers fan and you've been watching them the last couple of years, they've had so many games where guys, and rightfully, the guys have gone off for career highs, guys have put up 40, 50 points, but the Pacers have won these games because of just as a collective unit. It's nothing new to us. So I understand Dame's out, but the guy could have had 40 or 50 points, and that maybe would have made it a close game. So I just think the Pacers, Halliburton, he shot the ball. He didn't shoot the ball well, and I think a lot of his shots are still going to be wide open just because, like I said, with Lopez, they don't know what to do, whether to drop coverage or switch. And Halliburton's so good at picking, figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
So I think once he gets back on a roll, I just think the Pacers have so many matchup nightmares for these guys. But
running it against a team that is just, they don't want to do it and they're not good at it. That's the other thing, too. And I mentioned 22-5, I think it was, in fast break points. That's exactly what you want to see from this Pacer team right there. Because, you transition, from the defensive glass, which they took all 5 guys to the glass, or you transition out of makes and they push it up the floor. And they do that not just with the starters, but that's why I felt McConnell, that's why he was so important a year ago. That's why he was important again in game number 1, because he has the capability of dictating that tempo on both ends as well. It's important. Really is, Cameron. Anything else?
Not nothing else again. I just hope that we have another great game from Kuzma and Taurean Prince. So
yeah.
Maybe if they do, I'll buy their jersey next game if they can put that up again.
I think Pacer fans will love that. Cameron, thank you for the call. Cameron did mention, too, right there, about picking up full court. And there's a difference, and you could tell. High ball screens are difficult. When you pick up full court, you saw Nembhard a couple of different times get over easily the top of screens. The high ball screens that were set, he was able to get over. Now, on the Pacer end offensively, Miles sets a high ball, and the pick and pop is such a big deal. But if you don't pick up like the Bucks don't full court, or certainly don't want to, full court, three-quarter court, whatever the thing might be, it makes it more, to me, it makes it more effective with what the Pacers are trying to do with high ball screens, and that initiates the entire offense most of the time with Halliburton and Miles. So you automatically get what you're looking for, whereas on the defensive end for the Pacers, they kind of foul things up there at the point of attack. At least that's the way that it looked defensively on Saturday in game number 1. Eddie Gill, about that and more coming up at the top of the hour. Pacers TV, Pacers Radio. So what is it, NBA TV tomorrow night? You're going to be Pacer TV all day long. Local, everybody, local. And I love Grady and Stephanie White, but all local all the time. Remember that. Stephen Holder, Colts Draft. That's coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. 2 games on the NBA schedule later on tonight as far as the postseason is concerned. A near miss by the Pistons in Madison Square Garden, too, on Saturday night. We'll get to that. Cooper Flagg going to the NBA. That's going to surprise nobody. And Chris Ballard with the media a little bit earlier today. Yeah, you don't want to hard target something you know that you need because that's when you can make mistakes. And what I gather from that is there was probably a massive Colts fan eye roll. They're going to draft a tight end. It's probably going to be that Loveland dude from Michigan, right? It may not be Warren because he may not be there, but you're going to draft a tight end, right? Quick break. We'll come back. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Gonna buy something. I'm gonna stare all day.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We knew that this series would come with a little extra juice from everybody, not just the players, the fans as well. And you could feel that energy from the minute, that we ran on the floor. I got chills running on the court just because of the energy in the building right away. So we know how important our fans are. That's why securing home court for this first round was very important to us. And we played really well at home. Through the last month or two of the season, we played really well at home over last year's playoffs. So we're really confident at home. Love playing at home, and our fans are a big reason for that. So we're looking forward to having another game in front of them before we get to go play Milwaukee.
Courtesy of the Pacers right there, Tyrese Halliburton, and I thought that the fans were awesome on Saturday. And I kind of wondered at 1 o'clock start on a Saturday afternoon to get the entire NBA postseason officially underway. I thought, I wonder what it was going to be like. And it was brought immediately. And listen, I watched all these playoff games too, especially the ones yesterday. And listen, I know that I'm showing favoritism here, but smooch it. I don't care. I don't see anybody's home court quite like that. Maybe the Thunder, and maybe we didn't notice it as much because they end up depancing the Grizzlies by 51. But Gamebridge was electric on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. 7 o'clock tomorrow night, game number 2. Go Pacers TV. I think it's NBA TV. They never do anything for us anyway. What the hell? Pacers TV. And right here, 6:30, your coverage begins coming up tomorrow here on The Fan. Later on tonight, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, too. You have a couple of game 2s, Pistons and Knicks. Knicks came back early 4th to get a win in game number 1. 7:30 tonight as the Pistons hope to, in Madison Square Garden, even things up. The Clippers and the Nuggets, with the Nuggets up a game, that overtime winning game number 1 over the Clippers. That is at 10 o'clock coming up later on tonight. The Colts draft, first round, NFL draft in general, coming up on Thursday. Rick Venturi, as you guys have asked, you shall receive, joins us coming up at 4 o'clock on Thursday. 4 o'clock on Thursday, and our location will be Taylor's Pub. That is in Nora. Me, Brent Holverson, Heaven Hill Distillery, and an incredible, fun afternoon to join us for this tavern tour stop. And Rick Venturi, 4 o'clock hour, again, coming up on Thursday. That is at Taylor's Pub in Nora. Behringer's coming up on Wednesday with us, and then with the Indy Ignite volleyball team beginning at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon at the Fishers Event Center. Hopefully everybody had a fantastic Easter weekend as well and celebrated that with the family. I did watch some of the Reds yesterday. 24-2. Now that's what I'm talking about. That's what I expect every single game. 24, and believe me, they put up enough runs yesterday to where I felt very confident that the bullpen would be able to hold up their end. A 22-run cushion was going to be enough. They fire up a series with the Marlins coming up later on tonight. That is at 6:40. Cardinals and Braves from Atlanta tonight at 7:15 as well. All a part of the somewhat regional look at MLB later on this evening. James says break, and we shall. I'm going to talk to a former NBA guard about, for starters, the guard play of the Pacers. In particular, Andrew Nembhard. Both ends of the floor. Really dictating terms to a degree that was incredibly impressive. Talk to Eddie Gill about that. Pacers TV, Pacers Radio, top of the hour. Colts draft, round number 1, the words of Chris Ballard earlier today. Stephen Holder and I talk that up coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
I fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled of elderberry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Gets it to Turner, who hands it to Halliburton. 13 on the shot clock, 17 on the game clock. Halliburton right sideline to Nembhard, who's had a brilliant half shooting the ball. He'll let a three go from way out, and he hits another one from the left edge.
Mark Boyle, Pacers Radio, tomorrow night, 7 p. tip, 6:30 coverage begins right here on The Fan. Both Pacers Radio and Pacers TV is where you shall find our next guest. Pacers get game 1, 117-98. Game 2, once again, coming up tomorrow night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. First round, Bucks and the Pacers, and former NBA guard Eddie Gills on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So it's a good starting point right here. You played the position at that level, and you watched Andrew Nembhard, I felt, dictate terms to start that game and throughout that game on both ends. Obviously, as we just heard, the offense, knocking down shots, being aggressive, going to the hoop strongly. I thought that was important. But let's just talk a little bit about his defense. And he started out against Ryan Rollins, and that's great. But his defense off the ball, helping his teammates, anticipating where the ball was going, especially if it's Giannis trying to get out of a double team or find one of his open teammates, which he had done at a very high level down the stretch of the season. Andrew Nembhard on both ends, I thought, was outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I've been singing his praises for the last couple seasons now on the impact that he has on the game, but specifically on the defensive end. I mean, it's easy to get enamored with shot making and assists and all these type of highlight reel plays from an offensive perspective. And sometimes he's able to provide those, but what he is a guy you can count on, especially on that defensive end. And usually it's the on-ball defense that he's so good at because he takes on the toughest task. But with no Damian Lillard out there, so now he has Ryan Holiday out. While I think he's going to be a good player down the road, and he's got a great young potential right now, he's also not Damian Lillard. So I think that may have had some sort of contribution to him being able to be a little bit more aggressive offensively, a little bit more locked in on that end as well, and some of the damage he was able to do driving the lane. And I'd love to see him making those plays. I was super happy for him, but those plays you referenced off the ball, that's just high IQ basketball. A lot of times you see guys hugging their man weak side when they should be in a help position, or having some anticipation to some of those passes, and next thing you know, a guy's dunking a basketball because they're not there. But he was able to come up with steal after steal or a deflection that led to a steal, and just an all-around great game for him.
I thought that he and they were coached up, and Eddie Gills on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline defensively, because it seemed like there were very few times they were out of place or they were ahead of the decisions being made by the Bucks, whether it was Giannis or anybody else. I just thought defensively that was an incredibly good game plan that we saw from the Pacer coaching staff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Jenny Busick, Jim Boylan, they've been, heading the ship there from a defensive perspective, and they've done a terrific job, especially in that game, really being able to establish a scheme for what they wanted to get done there. And then the players, it's on them. It's the onus on them to go out there and execute the game plan and be knowledgeable of what the scouting report is. And I think that's the other thing about this is over the last two seasons, the Pacers and the Bucks have seen each other. It's almost as if they're running inter-squad scrimmages at this point because of the amount of times they played each other. But they're very familiar with what they likes to do and what they're trying to get accomplished. And certainly the scheme was on point, and they did a great job of executing.
Hey, Eddie, we're singing the praises of Andrew Nembhard, certainly off the ball defensively, but you mentioned the dynamic, and now the expectation is here at some point, maybe sooner rather than later in Game 2 tomorrow night, it will change with Damian Lillard being back. How does that change for those out there listening? How does that change defensively with Andrew Nembhard and the rest of this team with the reinsertion now of Damian Lillard, if indeed that's going to be the case in Game 2 tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, he goes back to a responsibility that he's had throughout the season. So that's the one thing. It's not a huge adjustment because he's had, in terms of his one-on-one assignments every single night, he takes on the toughest tasks on the perimeter. While he's in some cases gotten spelled or some time with, Neesmith or earlier in the season when Shepard was stepping in and takes that responsibility. But he's done the heavy lifting when it comes to the most difficult offensive challenge on the perimeter every single game. The problem is you still got Giannis out there with them, with Damian Lillard, if in fact he is back. So you have that to contend with two guys who can draw double team and sometimes triple team, which gives their teammates open shot opportunities on the 3-point line. And you couldn't tell it in game one, but that team is one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league, in large part because of Giannis being able to draw so many bodies, and these guys are shooting open shots all the time.
I felt that they were forcing him to make quicker decisions. He wasn't able to settle in anywhere and pick and choose anywhere he was throwing the ball. He had to do that on the fly. I thought that was a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And when you play this team, I mentioned this, on the call, it is a huge multiple effort type of game when you're playing against a team that's led by Giannis Antetokounmpo, because you can't let him play one-on-one basketball. He's going to have 80 points, like literally, if he plays one-on-one all night long. So you got to get multiple bodies to him. But what's that mean? As he's passing to the teammates, that second and third effort to get out to the 3-point line and still not get blown by, but you're able to contest the 3-point shot. It's incredibly difficult to do that. So, going back to your very first question about Nembhard, you got to have a certain level of anticipation of what the next play or pass will be, because oftentimes if you wait for it to happen, next thing you know, you're pulling out the net.
Here's Eddie Gill, former NBA player, Pacers TV, Pacers Radio. Pacers game 2 at the Bucks tomorrow night. Up a game in that best-of-7 first-round series. Tip time is at 7 o'clock. Of course, you can hear it right here on The Fan. If I were going to give you 3 stats, which do you think in game 1 became the most important? 22-5 fast break points in favor of the Pacers. We expect that. 8 offensive boards. I think 1 in the first half for the Bucks, but 1 assist for Giannis. Of those 3, which one do you think is the most important that the Pacers won?
Man, I would say the 1 assist, because I firmly believe this. He's one of the most underrated passers we have in the game also, especially the last 1 or 2 seasons. He is a really good passer, but if he ends the game with 1 assist, that tells me that his teammates, they're not getting off, because there's only so much you're going to do to slow him down, even though you have, essentially the whole team trying to guard him. He still ended up with his 30, whatever he had, and his rebounds and that kind of thing. But if his assist numbers are low, that tells me the rest of the guys aren't getting off the way they potentially can and have for a substantial amount of this season. So out of all those, although, obviously they're all very positive, I think the 1 assist is the big one that stands out for me.
The fast break points was a big deal too, and I want to bring this up defensively. One more thing before we move on is whether it's full court or 3/4 court, the importance of the Pacers picking them up defensively. One thing with the Pacers, and you watch them play, and one of the important aspects offensively is high ball action. And we'll just say, for example, it's Tyrese and Miles, and he sets a screen, he gets open, whatever. They're able to initiate the offense almost every time via that. It was a struggle for the Bucks to get into theirs because they were picked up, and these high ball screens, whether we're talking about Lopez or Giannis, I thought the Pacer defenders were doing a great job of getting over those screens, and it really wasn't effective like you would think the Bucks would want to have it.
Yeah, I think it's super important, and yes, you have to be able to do that. In fairness, I'll just looking at it objectively, it's going to be different when Dame is running that ball screen versus Ryan Hollins.
Yeah.
Because of his craftiness and simply how good he is. But, also on the flip side, to your point, the Pacers did do a great job of being physical, being proactive. And sometimes you just got to try to initiate and be more aggressive about where that ball goes. If you just allow any NBA player, for that matter, to just go wherever they want on the court, it's going to be a long night. And the Pacers did a good job of trying to influence the basketball in certain areas. And when you have guys picking up full court, it just makes a toll on a team, and it just shows that you're engaged into it. And, again, like guys like Nembhard, Neesmith, and even Pascal Siakam, sometimes his man's bringing up the ball before and he's picking them up full court. I mean, it's just great to have that type of effort and dedication on that end.
Yeah, and a couple of things come to mind. One is the Bucks absolutely do not want to play that way. Number two is this Bucks team, Eddie, and you know this. They view the Pacers and have in the past and all these matchups for the past 2 years in this rivalry, they view the Pacers as soft. And I thought that the Pacers came out on Saturday afternoon and dictated terms on both ends in that capacity.
Yeah, and honestly, they could think whatever they like to think, but the last 2 years have yielded different results. If you want to go back a few seasons ago when they were beating the Pacers' brains in every night, then okay, that's a different conversation. But over the last 2 seasons, it is a very different story. The Pacers have definitely answered the bell, whether it's physical play, whether it's just flat out wins and losses, just the course of the game. They really changed the flow of how those matchups have gone. I mean, the Pacers are no longer looking at this team as some sort of Goliath that they can't handle.
It's Eddie Gill's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Pacers Bucks coming up in Game 2 tomorrow night. Did this occur to you at any point? Maybe you had mentioned it. I don't know. I didn't catch it if you did. But listen, I know he was in Washington. I don't know where he was on Saturday afternoon. But wherever Chris Middleton was, were you glad? Did you find yourself feeling good that he was there instead of being at Gainbridge Fieldhouse like I did?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just like this time last season when Giannis was wherever he was in street clothes, you felt good about that because Chris Middleton, even though he's obviously probably on the back end of his career, so he has a hard time staying on the floor. But when he is on the floor and healthy, he's a major problem. I think he had a game here. I think he had 43 or 44 points in one of the playoff games and almost won it himself. But yeah, definitely much better suited now with the Wizards than from a Pacers perspective than with the Bucks.
It's Eddie Gill with us. So obviously, Damian Lillard, the expectation is, at least my guess, is he'll play tomorrow night. We shall see. But just beyond that, let's just say he will. What other adjustments will Doc Rivers make, and what else will we see with this starting lineup? How similar or lack thereof would you expect it to be compared to what we saw Saturday in Game 1?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the part you love about the playoffs. Being a basketball geek of sorts, I love seeing the playoff chess match between the coaching staffs and what adjustments they try to go with. And the one I'm anxious to see more than anything else, aside for if Damian Lillard is available or not, but what they decide to do with Brook Lopez, because he was getting abused the entire game while he was on the floor. Miles Turner, if he's knocking down that top of the key pick and pop 3-point shot, then Brook Lopez can't be in the game. And in that case, Game 1, and it's happened in other games before, Miles is typically hitting that shot to some level of consistency, and Brook just can't come out of the paint. So I don't know if you even caught this, but Brook Lopez checked out of the game in the third quarter about midway through and never went back in the game. And in large part because it was just a matchup nightmare for them. So I'm anxious to see how much he's on the floor, or if they try to have him guard Siakam, which I think that's also a problem for them too. I'm anxious to see that one because that whole pick and pop action between Halliburton and Turner is deadly.
All right, listen, it's, I guess, easily not played up. I don't know, forgotten about, but not played up. But offensively, we saw the orchestration that's necessary from Tyrese Halliburton. But the offense, you certainly want to see better. 3 of 13, 0 of 7 from distance. And we saw for the first time out there Benedict Mathurin playing in the postseason. He was fired up and had some moments, but he didn't shoot it that well either. What would you expect from both coming up in game number 2 tomorrow night?
I expect improved efficiency from both of them. Again, especially being at home, we all know how well the Pacers have been at home. Tyrese has had games where he's not great from the perimeter. I don't anticipate that lasting very long. What I did like about his game is he was able to get some other things done to help. I think he had 7 or 8 rebounds. Obviously, his assist numbers were up again. And he had some plays going to the basket where he was able to find teammates. So fortunately, he's able to do some other things other than just shoot perimeter shots. And I think Benedict Mathurin will be able to find his way also. That was his first playoff experience. And the one thing about him also, even though maybe from the field he wasn't great, he's the guy that's always going to get to the free throw line, and he shoots it at a great percentage. So he's still going to be able to get some offensive production there as well.
As to what level did you think this team played compared to, a lot of the efforts that we saw down the stretch of the regular season? I thought that was really from start to finish some of the best basketball we've seen in a while.
Yeah, considering the opponent, considering what the stakes and the urgency that you have to go out there and play with, I thought that first half may have been the best half of basketball we've seen in play. When you add those, put that in that type of context, that first half was incredible. But having said that, that team is led by by Giannis Antetokounmpo. So for them to make a run is expected. You're not going to just beat that team by 51 the way Memphis did yesterday. That's a different story. From start to finish, to your point, the Pacers did a great job of responding once Milwaukee did make a run, and they were able to lock it up. So I think overall it was a very good showing.
Yeah, it's Eddie Gill on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Pacers TV tomorrow night, and I say go local all the time anyway, whether it's Pacer TV or Pacer Radio, but I think the NBA TV broadcast is going to be blacked out, so make sure you know that Pacers TV is going to be your spot. Eddie Gill's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. In closing here, I thought Pascal Siakam made a great point after the game talking about what they did defensively. And the one thing that kind of kept, if you want to call Milwaukee hanging around, I think they cut it to 12 at one point in the second half. And he mentioned this after the game, was the Pacers losing track of shooters on the floor. And you saw that certainly with A.J. Green, for example. You can't lose the shooters, in a couple of different times late. I don't know if it was a lack of focus, having a big lead, or what. They lost shooters. You can't have that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That's what I referenced earlier. Giannis only had one assist. Out of their 3-point numbers were bad as a whole. I can't remember the exact numbers right now, but A.J. Green was clearly the guy who was making them. And quite honestly, that's why he's out there on the floor, because he is so good at shooting it, and he can shoot it from deep. So whoever has that assignment, you maybe want to be a step closer to him in terms of your help side principles, because he doesn't need a whole lot of time to get it off either. But as a whole, the nature of it is sometimes when you have a lead like that and you're playing so well, sometimes you're off the gas a little bit, or your discipline isn't there, the sense of urgency just isn't there. We've seen it on every level, and actually spanning a wide variety of sports. But you got to be able to stay with it, because that team can get right back in the game and win a game with their perimeter shooting, while Giannis is kind of doing his thing.
Yeah. The other important aspect was obviously the bench, and T.J. McConnell looked like the T.J. McConnell that we certainly knew from a year ago in the postseason. He continued that tempo, pressed the issue, and knocked down that jumper in the lane. That was the T.J. McConnell that we know, we love, and we like seeing. We saw that in Game 1 too.
Yeah, I thought TJ was awesome. He checked in the third quarter, in between that span, and then the beginning of the fourth. I thought he was very good. And Milwaukee, if you remember that New Year's Eve game where they played zone the entire game and came back from being 19 down and won the game here, that was another game. I think in terms of a coaching perspective, the Pacers were very well prepared. They ran that while TJ was out there. They got to a ball screen action. He just hit that elbow jumper. I think he had probably like 3 in a row. He had one on the baseline, and then he was also able to get into the lane to find shooters out on the perimeter. So, yeah, I thought TJ was great. His energy was fantastic. Defensively, he's always a pest. He was very good at coming specifically in that quarter.
It's Eddie Gill. You got him on both Pacers Radio and Pacers TV. 6:30 for both coming up tomorrow night, and then 7 p.m. is that tip time from Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And, we were watching games yesterday, other than, I guess, Golden State and Houston late. There were a lot of blowout city type of situations yesterday. You referenced the Grizzlies and the Thunder. Yeah, that's tough. That's going to be a tough one for the Grizzlies to come back from right there, regardless.
Yes, it is. That's a blow to the psyche, and they get a day or two to. I guess they only had a day in between, so they got all day today to think about it. I think they'll come out and make a better showing, but man, Oklahoma City is. You talk about a team that's just flat out relentless, and they just don't quit on any play. They're going to be a tough out for anybody, regardless to who it is, whether it's So whatever's going on out west, or if they make it to the finals, whoever it is, they're going to be a tough one to beat 4 times in 7 games.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's so deep. I mean, it just, hey, here comes,
Yeah.
and all these dudes are alike. You know what I mean? Like, they're all alike, all play the same role, all do the same stuff at a very high level. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you can make an argument that SGA played his worst game of the season in terms of offensive production, and we know how consistent he's been. He's rolling out of bed, getting 30 every night, and then he struggled. When he went and sat down, that's when that lead went from, 15 to 30 in a hurry, and then next thing you know, there was a 50-point game. It was like, what am I watching?
Yeah. We all kind of laughed about Sam Presti and what he was doing with all these, and now it makes a hell of a lot of sense now. It does.
Man, he's looking like they need to put a statue outside the arena right,
Dude. All
right
right,
now,
man.
because he is looking like a genius.
Got Pacers Radio, Pacers TV responsibilities. Game 2 coming up tomorrow night at Cambridge Fieldhouse. It is Eddie Gill on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Absolute pleasure, man. I appreciate that. We'll look for you down there tomorrow night. Thanks, Eddie.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
It's Eddie Gill on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Game 2 tomorrow night. And I am reminded of this, and I mentioned this to Eddie, that it says NBA TV, which is lame, but it will be blacked out on NBA TV. So there are going to be a lot of people tomorrow night going, hey, NBA TV, that's what I heard, and you're going to go, and you're not going to see it, and you're going to get all sorts of pissed. It is on Pacers TV coming up tomorrow night. So normally over the course of the season, that's FanDuel Sports Network. Wherever you catch the Pacers, that's where it's going to be. That's why I was telling you, got to go local all the time. Otherwise, that stuff will just drive you nuts. But Pacers TV tomorrow, and those of you, mark my words, and there will be some out there that end up going to NBA TV and go, hey, what? I don't get this. And you're going to be all pissy about it. Just a word of warning. Pacers TV, Pacers Radio, Eddie Gill on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So you cannot let the board or a need dictate what you do. It's Chris Ballard a little bit earlier today, because that will lead to mistakes being made in the draft process. All right. Get down to business with that. Chris Ballard with the media a little bit earlier today also was answering questions regarding the whole quarterback dynamic. And the expectation, as Chris Ballard had mentioned, is he would guess at some point this season both will produce for them. And, of course, he's going to be right, because both will play. If there's one thing that we know, that both the starter and the backup at some point will play. Maybe not to the results that you want, but yes, he will be right about that. Stephen Holder coming up at the top, 5 o'clock hour. ESPN and ESPN.com. Me and you coming up on the other side, too. More about the NBA, a little college mixed in as well, and, of course, the NFL draft, and locations on the road Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, too. Don't go anywhere. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, Mr. Falcon.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
If you look every year, I mean, even when we had Andrew, we brought, quarterbacks in. I think you do that all the time. And we also, believe it or not, like we worked out a couple. We went and visited a couple. I think you do that every year. The one thing you can see with the quarterback position now, like you better get to know them in the draft process because you never know when it's going to come back around to you. You just don't know. That's the one thing I always kind of giggle when a quarterback turns us down. Like, no, we're not going to visit with you. Okay, 3 years from now, we'll see how that plays out. Because you just look at it. I mean, the changing of teams now, the lack of patience. Guys are and everybody's developmental curve and journey is different. So you never know when it's going to come back around to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess I understand. But yeah, see how that works out. Yeah. Maybe in your number yeah. I know I'm not doing a great job of explaining myself right here, but don't you just kind of go, you cringe a little bit on that, or you just cringe in general all the time? One of these days, there will be no more cringing. I thought, all right. I mean, basically, that's what I'm doing is how Chris responded right there to that. I don't know if I'd be messing around with somebody else's business right there. You just worry about your own business. Again, and that's where fans are with this right now. Anything that is said, it is met with a massive eye roll until further notice. 100% fair. Now, if you're kind of a butt sniffer in general, then you're going to go, oh, I'm mad, and I'm going to shake my fist and be unhappy. But most of the time, these are mandatory. You get asked these questions, you answer. That is fantastic. That's what has to happen. That's what takes place. But until further notice, I think you just kind of talk about your squad and you move forward, and hopefully you're making all the right calls. Be great. I just found that soundbite a little bit funny right there. As did, I think, a lot of you as well, because you guys have pointed it out. Hey, JMV, anyone who thinks that Damian Lillard is coming out like 2014 Portland Trailblazer Lillard, being out 30-plus days at his age after being on blood thinners and playing 35 minutes doesn't understand the human body. I don't know if anybody is looking at it other than this. He is a future Hall of Fame threat. And holy hell, how much better do you have to be than to look better offensively? We'll start right there with Kuzma and Prince. Or really anybody else in that starting lineup outside of Giannis. How much better do you have to be? Honestly, I think he would look better automatically after all you just described. Because they were so woeful. 14 points from starters not named Giannis. Man, how much better do you have to be? One guy that was Mr. Blutarski across the board from Animal House, he was 0.0 in Kyle Kuzma. And I saw after the game where Doc Rivers said, hey, hold on a minute. You got to get the ball to score. He never got the ball. He only took 2 shots and blah, blah. I mean, he didn't do anything. He had 2 fouls. 0 of 5. 0 of 2 from distance. 0 of 2 from the free throw line. How much better? Listen. Older Damian Lillard, out 30-plus days, blood thinners coming back from that injury, not play. It has to be better than the other effort they got in that starting lineup, doesn't it? I'd guess so. Just thought. Jim McCann, Southern California, checks in. You've got awesome female listeners, so I'm pretty sure they truly get how guys' games are taken to a higher level with pump nads. No question. Well, Tyrese Halliburton mentioned that, too. He didn't say pump nads, but he said that he was immediately energized, and he got chills running out onto the floor. I thought the crowd was spectacular on Saturday afternoon. That Saturday afternoon gig can be rough. Oftentimes. I thought the crowd was awesome. Pacers-Bucks coming up tomorrow night. That is game number 2. Pacers up a game in the best of 7. I thought Rick Carlisle put it after the game as well as you could. This is going to be monumentally difficult. He's absolutely right. JMV, I've had a family member with blood clots, and yes, I know NBA players have amazing doctors, but I've never seen anyone recover from a blood clot in a month, ever, especially after taking blood thinners. Seems a little sketchy to me. We'll find out coming up tomorrow night about one of those situations. Bill's at 239-1070. Bill, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, JMV, got the triple play happening this week. It's going to be a fun week. Going to make up for last week not having any live shows to go to. So I'm looking forward.
We're going to Behringer's coming up on Wednesday. South Meridian, awesome place, just a historic place, really, here in Indianapolis. Taylor's Pub, Nora, and then with the Indy Ignite on Friday at Fisher's Event Center. We're going to be busy, buddy. I can't wait to see you.
It's going to be fun to see the whole crew there and everything, and I can't wait for Wednesday. But I wanted to talk about Dame Lillard a little bit. If the Pacers get out to a fast start and are really pushing the tempo at the very, very beginning, what kind of responsibility does the Bucks as an organization have to protect a player from his own, desire to want to be a good teammate and to want to participate? I think the Pacers get out of a fast pace, fast start, and really harass Lillard. I think the Bucks are going to pull him.
Well, I mean, obviously, we don't know how he's going to respond, and I think that anybody would suggest it is going to be difficult. But he is a future Hall of Fame guy, and you just think that if he's going to be cleared by doctors and feels he can go, at the very least, Billy, you look at the other stats they got from everybody but Giannis in that starting lineup. I mean, yeah, anything is better than what two of their dudes gave them. So we'll see, I guess.
I know. I think the minutes count for Lillard tomorrow will be over-under be at 24 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, too. You bring it up, too, as far as what type of time crunch he's going to be on. Restricted minutes you would expect, right? Coming up tomorrow night, for example. So, yeah. And then what he does in those minutes. And again, the Pacers do what the Bucks don't want to do regardless, and that is get up and down the floor. And they're going to continue to do that. And that is the edge that they have. And certainly in this series is an edge they took advantage of on Saturday afternoon.
And another advantage I think the Pacers are going to have is that Obi Toppin had just been outstanding down the stretch and everything, but he didn't really have as much of an impact on Saturday. I think he's going to have a huge impact tomorrow.
Yeah, he had like 1,000 fouls in the first 3 minutes he entered the game, I think. So it was a struggle because he got whistled for some fouls. But he has been good. The bench was good. I mean, really it was. I don't have any complaints. The only thing I want to see Tyrese, become offensively. I want to see him be better offensively, getting his own. That is going to be a must. There are very few games you're going to get away with your guy having that type of offensive output. He still did get everybody else involved, but to be at their best, he also has to get his own.
Absolutely, and you talk about the second unit. I mean, if the Bucks are a little bit gassed and everything, and all of a sudden here comes T.J. McConnell, well, that's not your sign to take a breather. I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Bucks, I think, and a little bit better perimeter defense by the Pacers, and I think they're going to be just fine.
No, and Game 2 is going to be difficult tomorrow night. There's no question about that. But Yeah, this Pacer team looked really good in game number 1, and hopefully a lot of that is something that they take advantage of coming up tomorrow night. Billy, I can't wait to see you later on this week.
Yeah, it's going to be great, man. I'm going to support the Pacers 12 ounces at a time.
You got that right. Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Billy, thank you very much for the call right there. Behringer's South Side, that's South Meridian coming up on Wednesday. First things first. And then actually I'm going over. I got to give a shout-out to our friends at Marian University because I am going to be a part of what is going to be incredibly fun coming up on Wednesday, too. Enjoyable for me, and I appreciate being asked. The Clayton Family Circle of Honor supporting Knights Athletics. I have found some clothes, and I am going to MC that up, and we are going to have a lengthy conversation with Speedway President and IndyCar President Doug Bowles at this event and dinner coming up on Wednesday. So thank you, Marian University, for asking me to be a part of that. That should be fun. Very excited. So that comes up on Wednesday. I mentioned on Thursday, Taylor's Pub. At Taylor's Pub at 3 o'clock. Tavern tour stop. And then I think we're all going to go down. I think Hagen and Scott Long, we're going to go see The Fix. The Fix at, great 80s band, by the way. The Fix at the Vogue in Broad Ripple on Thursday. I've never seen The Fix. Why not? And the Indy Ignite coming up on Friday. JMV, it can't just be me that knew that Middleton trade is the X factor in the matchup. Yeah, I talked about that on Saturday. Talked about that with Eddie Gill just a moment ago, too. He was stone cold, a Pacer shot-making killer. Giannis will always get what he gets, but that dude was a 40-point threat in a game against Indiana. If Halliburton's shot catches fire, this will be a sweep. I'm going to tell you, first of all, if Lillard is nowhere near, I mean, I get people on both sides. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I would automatically think it would be difficult to play at a very high level immediately like that, if indeed he does come back tomorrow night. But at the same time, he's been one of the better players on the planet for a while. And you look at that team and what they offered offensively, especially on Saturday, hell, anything is better than what they got in that starting lineup, other than one guy. But if he can't go and it continues to be a struggle, well, we'll see if the Pacers can't get game 2. And then maybe on Friday night, put a little stranglehold on this bad boy. I know that's getting well ahead of where we need to be. But just a thought. Because really, other than the Bucks getting down 12, getting back into it, I guess, to a degree on Saturday, that was a swamping and overwhelming performance by the Pacers. No doubt about that. They got a chance to do what the Bucks can't in so many different areas, and certainly what the Bucks do not want to do in so many areas. And a lot of the things that we talked about last week is what translated into that Pacer effort, execution, and win on Saturday. Eddie Gill and I a little bit earlier, that podcast at 1075thefan.com. We'll come back with your calls. We got Stephen Holder coming up at the top of the hour. First round NFL draft on Thursday from Green Bay. And the Colts selection. Chris Ballard met with the media earlier today. You cannot go after one particular position, he says. That could foul up the works and you can make a mistake. We'll talk about that with Stephen Holder. We'll talk about the place-kicking situation that was also referenced earlier today, plus the quarterback stuff, which is not going to go away anytime soon. I know it's going to wear you out. Hey, by the way, if you missed it last week, we're going to have one hell of a month of May. I'll explain that coming up as well. Sit tight right there. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Become a AAA member. Do that today. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I did not watch either Saturday or Sunday, but I heard from you. WrestleMania 2025. Las Vegas, right, James?
You're correct.
That's where Eddie Garrison and Nathaniel were.
They
Las
were.
Vegas.
They actually apparently met one of the WWE superstars.
Which one did they meet?
They met Drew McIntyre.
Is he a big deal?
Yeah, he's a big guy. Yeah.
I mean, he's a big deal as in big deal.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a
Okay.
big guy physically, but also he's one of the bigger stars in WWE right now.
For the WWE WrestleMania fans out there, what transpired over a 2-day period in Las Vegas? What'd you see, James, as a big fan?
We had a lot going on. The guy whose theme song that I was just playing, CM Punk, he participated in the main event at night one between.
Was Living Color there too?
Oh yeah, they did his theme song live. It was actually really cool.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. But he was in a triple threat with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins came away with the victory. Paul Heyman, very famously, I should say at this point, betrayed both Roman Reigns and CM Punk, so that was a really awesome moment.
In what fashion was his betrayal?
He sided with Seth Rollins, so he had been Roman Reigns' guy. CM Punk stole him, stole him back, and then he betrayed both of them and gave Seth Rollins a chair for Seth Rollins to hit CM Punk.
Whatever happened to that third guy, that Dean guy? Was it being the Shield?
Yeah, he is now in AEW as John Moxley.
John Moxley?
That's his name, yeah.
Who comes up with these names? John Moxley.
I think,
isn't that Mox from Varsity Blues?
It could be. I don't know.
Why don't you just call himself Vanderbeek? That'd be better. I'm Vanderbeek.
I think that's a name he has had from a long time when he was first starting like his indie wrestling
What's his
career.
name? Dean? What was his name?
It was Dean Ambrose in WWE,
Ambrose.
and then he left and became John Moxley.
All right, John Moxley. You know, we've had the Big Show has been in here before.
Mm-hmm.
Help me out here. Who are some other ones? The Miz has been in here before.
The Miz, he's a long-time guy in
Yeah,
WWE. He's been around
here
for a
before
while
too.
Yeah.
And who's the Irish guy?
Sheamus.
Sheamus has been in here before too.
He's awesome.
3 guys.
He's an awesome dude.
Was he in WrestleMania, Sheamus?
Not this year, unfortunately.
Is he just too damn old now? Is that it?
No, he just wasn't. There wasn't enough spots. There's only a limited number of matches for WrestleMania, so he wasn't doing anything that was, I guess, hot enough to be on the WrestleMania card. Though I would argue you could have put him in place of a certain couple of matches. But
so they do WrestleMania in the Sphere?
No, it was at the Raiders Allegiant Stadium. Yeah, it was at Allegiant.
Yeah, it's in the football stadium.
Oh
there.
yeah, it's a big stadium thing
It's
now.
a big deal right there, man. WrestleMania. That's the update from James Adams, big-time WrestleMania maniac from Saturday and Sunday. WrestleMania 2025. I saw this from NBA University. I guess it's true. I didn't count. The Pacers made, and this is really interesting too, 317 passes. And being from the 317 area code, I think that's incredibly appropriate. 317 passes in Game 1 against Milwaukee, easily, according to NBA University, most of any team in the playoffs. NBA University continues in this X message. There's a reason their offense looks so smooth. Ball constantly moving and finding the open man. Creative system and high field players who buy in. Such an impressive squad. Now, I will say this, and it probably wouldn't have mattered, but if you watch Memphis and Oklahoma City yesterday, I don't even think Memphis passed the ball 100 times because it was like dribble up, dribble, 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 shoot, dribble, 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 turnover, dribble, 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 turnover, dribble, 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 shoot. So that is incredible. The 317 and the Pacers with 317 passes in the Game 1 win against Milwaukee. That according to NBA University. Big Glenn says, I think JMV would be a big Logan Paul guy. Who's Logan Paul? Is that one of those little dudes that fights all the time?
So he started out as a influencer / YouTuber who has since crossed over into WWE and now is a wrestler. He is good in the ring, but he's kind of a crappy human being, so nobody really likes him.
Crappy human being.
Yeah.
Logan Paul. JMV, did I see a lot of Milwaukee Bucks fans all over your X account? You did. You did. And, you know, I'm the one, I put a video out there of Giannis at the free throw line, which is just awful for the game flow. Awful. Well, if he would not foul him, yeah, whatever. My God, it just takes forever. So it was that, and then I responded to some guy named Big Dale, who's just a big jackass, and some other jackass. It was just kind of fun for me. I don't know. I got a kick out of it. And then everybody started responding to it, and you know, I got everybody's rules and regulations on handing the ball and how much time you get and how everything is okay if the Pacers wouldn't foul. And, you know what you got to do? You've got to annoy it. You got to let the guy do whatever he wants. Prediction for tomorrow, Tyler. That's coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. Colts draft prediction as well. So it's been different in free agency for Chris Ballard. I am going to say sand baggage today. And there is going to be getting up and getting Tyler Warren. That's going to be my call right there. Who's with me? Not a lot? Probably right. Trading up for Tyler Warren in a very uncharacteristic way this offseason so far. The draft along those lines. That on the other side. Stephen Holder, ESPN, ESPN.com, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
I am the cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I think we all know we like a group we have, what their subset, what they can do. Like they're good. We have two really good blockers. We have a young kid that we think's got speed and some upside. But saying that, if we got a chance to take one that we think can really make a difference, we will do it. I do know this, though. You can't chase, like when you end up chasing a need, okay, or something that is, that's when you make mistakes. So we'll let the board play out the way the board should play out. Of course, like in the first round, I can, you can already see, like, how we have it stacked versus how the outside world has it stacked, I promise you, is not the same. It's not. They don't have anything on the line. Like, I always laugh when everybody says, well, you reached or you took him too high. Well, by whose standard? Like, by whose standard is that criticism coming from? So we line it up and we draft them as, we think is best for our team.
So, Chris Ballard, Colts general manager, earlier today. We'll discuss those comments and more. And joining us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline is from ESPN and ESPN.com. He is Stephen Holder. Before we get started here, I did want to mention this regarding Stephen, and Chris had told you guys this at the outset. Thoughts to the family of college scouting director Matt Turpinning, whose wife passed away suddenly last week. And I know that, obviously there's been a lot of grieving going on over on West 56th Street the past week because of those circumstances. And I want to make sure that you and I and us send out our condolences and our thoughts to that family and the Colts family.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because that's the first thing that matters, right, is people. And I heard about it last week. Obviously, I wanted Chris to be the one to talk about that publicly. That's not my place. So I was glad that he mentioned it because I do think that it gives a window into just the human side of all, what all of us go through, right? I mean, there's no difference, NFL draft or not, being this week, when something like that happens, the humanity has to take over. And so it's been a really interesting time over there. They had to plow through, despite that in the draft room. All the scouts from around the country are here, doing the final meetings and going over the last few tweaks. And so it really hit hard because all those guys, they spend all that time, men and women, spend all that time in that draft room together, going over these prospects and ranking them. And so the guy who, sits at, kind of at the head of the table there among the scouts, Matt Turpinning, who's been here a long time, to see him go through that at the time that it's happening, I mean, it just really hit home. So, yes, thoughts and prayers to all of them. And Matt's been around a long time, man. He's a big part of that Colts family, over 20 years in the building.
Yeah, absolutely, too. Thinking about you today, certainly with that, as we digress and move on to things that matter much less, but we magnify them. Each and every moment we have a discussion, we go into draft week, round number 1 for the Colts and the NFL coming up on Thursday. So I thought about this. I brought it up last week. I don't know if it was with you. Maybe it was just in general terms. But because we have seen a different approach, certainly in free agency in this offseason so far, and we heard from Chris Ballard, the board dictating terms, whatever. But could this be a year in which you recognize what is a major shortcoming and you address it with the best player? Is this the situation where maybe the Colts were to trade up if they like somebody? Or certainly if we see the first time in a long time, I think going back to the 1970s, two tight ends drafted as high before the Colts end up drafting, might they take a more proactive measure if that were the case, would this be the season where you could see it, given what we've seen so far?
Well, there's a couple factors. There's the fact that Ballard has talked about, having to maybe get out of his comfort zone. And so he has shown a willingness to do that with what he did in free agency. So that's an indicator. That's one indicator. You also have an indicator in the way he approached the draft last year. And we now know, it was confirmed after the fact, that he did try to trade up last year. Now, who was he trying to trade up for? I mean, that is kind of left to our imagination because that's never been confirmed. But definitely him trying to move up into the top 5 or 10, that's not a Chris Ballard move historically. So now, as it relates to this particular draft, I am not predicting something like that. I don't even know that I expect it per se. But all I'm saying is kind of think what you're saying, which is there's been some precedent now, and he's kind of set the table for maybe doing things differently. So we shall see. And it also depends on how it plays out, right? Because if you're seeing a player slide who you didn't think would be there, well, then you start to calculate in your head, okay, maybe it's worth our while now, right? So it very much is an in the moment kind of decision. They're not deciding that now. They're deciding it Thursday night, so whether they go up or down, because that's always on the table as well with Chris Ballard.
And you're used to this by now, like everybody else is, but I did want to bring this up. The condescending tone that Chris Ballard has, he's never going to lose that, regardless of the circumstances, what he accomplishes, what he doesn't. But, I mean, I'd be damned. You ever sit in that room and go, maybe the condescending tone should be lost at this moment of your tenure with the Colts? You ever think that?
So I think this is a fair question, and I understand where it comes from. I would say, as someone who, I mean, the guy's been here forever, right? So I've spent a lot of time with Chris Ballard, just by him being around so long. So you can't help but get to know someone really well, right? And I would say it is a product of kind of his personality, and it might come off like this guy's a prick, right? I actually don't think he is. I think it's more so he's competitive, he's defiant to a degree, and not in a bad way, right? Like if you see him, for example, like during a game, I see him at halftime sometimes, like during the games, and just like I think he's about to go run through a wall. Like he's out of control, completely out of control, because he's so fiery and so wound tight, right? Because he should be, right? I mean, his butt is on the line every Sunday, of course. But I think what you're seeing sometimes is a product of that. It's more like, hey, you come at me, I got to go back at you. It's not like, but it's never personal. Like I ask questions all the time that, if he were sensitive, he'd probably be pissed about, and he never gets pissed. I will give him that. He never gets pissed. I never hear from him after the fact like, hey, man, I didn't appreciate that. Like, I've never heard that from him. I am sure that I have pissed off Chris Ballard over the years. He's never complained. He's never said a word, and has never at least indicated that it bothered him. So I look at it that way. Like, all right, if he's going to kind of push back at times, I'll give him credit on the other end of the spectrum, which is that he doesn't ever like make a stink about it if you do the same, right? So I just think you're seeing that combative South Texan, country boy. That's just kind of who he is, and I don't think he ever will lose that.
Yeah,
You're right.
that level of condescension would be, to me, akin to like if Kyle Kuzma after game one would be talking a bunch of junk about his game. Is that fair?
Kyle Kuzma's terrible, man.
Well, I mean, seriously,
I
mean that's what that's, and I know everybody around here is used to it, and I'm not mad about it. It is entertaining, but damn, you just want to say once you settle down here, it's like the Bucks talking junk the other night in game or the other afternoon in game number one. What are you talking junk for? Listen. You're getting your ass whipped.
Hey, listen, I didn't have that reaction to like defend Chris Ballard.
No,
I'm saying it to reinforce the fact that Kyle Kuzma is terrible. Okay. That guy, Query and I went to, I think we've gone to a couple of
Wizards-Pacers games the last couple of years, and we always talk about this guy. Like, this guy, what is it with this dude? Like, he can score 20 points, and I can come away from the game feeling like, why is he on the court?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And so, anyway, I'm on a whole different tangent here, but, like, man, that guy.
No,
I
get it. What you're saying about Chris Ballard is his response, because he hears and reads and sees everything, and that is him getting back at us or you or me or anybody else. That's his response. That's his, what they say nowadays, that's his flex, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's making a point, right? I mean, he knows what the conversation is out there. I think if you're a good leader of a football team or an organization, you should know what the public sentiment is, because you can't pretend it's not there. So I have no doubt that he knows what the conversations are. I have no doubt he probably has a Twitter account that no one knows about. I mean,
do you have any idea what it might be? Have you ever been told what it might be at all?
I absolutely do not know. He tells me all the time, he says all the time that he doesn't look at it and that his kids tell him. I don't doubt that that's true, that his kids do follow the stuff. I mean, they're not babies, they're old enough and they're on there, but I don't totally believe that he doesn't look at it. So I would say that. I would say I don't think Shane Steichen does. Shane is completely checked out from that stuff. He's like, I'm thinking about third down right now. I don't care about Twitter.
Yeah, I found that funny, and James just happened to play that coming back into you right here. And obviously, I wanted to get to the really important stuff before I got into this, and I'm thinking, man, I mean, I guess if that's how you want to be, it's like Bobby Portis on Saturday talking junk after 4 points and stinking things up. I mean, you go, okay.
Well, look, it's one of those things. It's one of those things where his personality plays great when you're winning, because fans love to hear the confidence come from winners, right? When you're not winning or you're struggling a little bit, it does not play as well. But I would say this, and the fans know this by now, Chris Ballard is going to be Chris Ballard every day of the week. And I will say that's really the only thing you can do, right? You can't pretend to be somebody else. It would be inauthentic. But you either love it or you hate it. There's no in between with Chris Ballard. Like, you got to take the whole package with him, right? He is who he is.
Yeah. And he's not been going anywhere for now going on 9 years, so you got to deal with it every single year. And it just kind of occurs to me, and also it's the target. That's why I think maybe this could be a different year. And you did bring up, and accurately so, that they go through all these possibilities of trying to trade up. It just talking about it after a fact is not quite the same as actually getting it done. And I think this is one of those moments to where there's no settling with the board going on here. If you really, truly like somebody and you have to go get somebody, I think now is a really good time to do that.
Yeah, I would say, the one thing that is kind of a conundrum here when you take that approach is that I always find it fascinating, like which players in the draft have immediate impact versus those who do not. And I don't mean that to say, like, if you don't have immediate impact, you're not going to be a good player. But it is always interesting. There's always like a handful of rookies every year where you're like, man, that guy was picked 17th. I never thought that he would have, this huge rookie season. And identifying who those guys are, it's next to impossible, I think, But that's kind of what they need, if you're looking at the draft from that perspective. If you're looking at it from, in terms of judging him in the short term, Chris Ballard, then you need guys that can have an immediate impact. But it's a really hard thing to do, is to determine which of those guys are the right picks. It's really hard to do. But I'm always fascinated by it, though. Like I said, there are guys that bloom right away, and there are guys that take 2 or 3 years who, in some cases, go on to be all pros and Hall of Famers. I just don't know what the difference is between the guys who bloom right away and excel right away and the guys who don't. But I would say this, it'd be nice if they had a couple of those this year, because while they did do some important things in free agency. That is true. This roster needs more than just that, is what I'd say. If they want to make an impact and truly have a chance to come back and finish the job here as the leaders of this team, they're going to need more than just what they did in free agency, I think.
Yeah, he's Stephen Holder of ESPN, ESPN.com, round one coming up on Thursday. Rick Venturi, by the way, joins us on Thursday afternoon for his thoughts on that in the 4 o'clock hour. So I know that Rick, and he'll unveil that with us coming up on Thursday. Do you have any possible targets outside of what has become kind of the obvious conversation for all of us right now?
Well, no, I mean, I just think that I think the tight end thing is real, right? But I there's so many scenarios that's just really hard to tell. Scenarios in this regard, like where these guys go. I mean, there's a mock draft on our site today on ESPN.com by Jordan Reed, who I think is pretty good. Jordan Reed has Tyler Warren falling to Indy. I mean, do I expect that? No, but I could see it. I think the problem you're going to have is that I think there are teams after last year, just seeing what Bowers did as a rookie, you don't want to be wrong about this guy. What if he is like that, right? I don't know. It'll be interesting. But you got the two tight ends. I think the odds of them getting one, if they want them, it's pretty good. But here's a name that I think you got to think about. No one's talked about that much, and it was brought to my attention in recent days. Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, linebacker. Not a position that we've talked about a lot, but a position where I think they need some help. EJ Speed is gone. This is not a prediction, okay, to be clear. I'm just throwing it out there for people to chew on, right? Just information. You can do whatever you want with it. I think he's somebody to think about. He is, as he was described to me, is like he has Darius Leonard potential. That is not a prediction, obviously, but certainly there's some shades there, right? Game changers at that position, I think, go a long way. I don't love drafting off-the-ball linebackers in the first round, but if they have the potential to be game changers, I don't care. So we'll see how that goes. And then ultimately, if it's not one of those two things, the tight ends, Jihad Campbell, if it's not either of those, I say just default to interior offensive line or defensive line. That's and you pick your flavor, which are the ones that you like. But I mean, that's really, I think, the subset of players that they're looking at and where they're likely to end up.
I will give you this, Stephen, too. If he really wanted to talk to you or us in a condescending tone, he could about drafting or bringing in linebackers, because that is something that has worked for he and his staff, certainly.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, that's why, look,
on all levels,
I imagine there might be some people, if let's say they made that pick, just completely for argument's sake, okay? Let's say they made that pick. I don't know that everybody's going to be on board with it from the fan base, just because it's not a position that's considered a high value position sometimes. But I would that's one area where I'm giving the Colts the benefit of the doubt, okay? Because they have generally not been wrong on a linebacker yet, which is it's fascinating how you could, for example, have many misses at edge rusher, all right, which is a similar skill set, and they've had tons of misses there, or at least misfortune, and they haven't missed at all at linebacker. I don't know what the difference is, but I just find that fascinating. Why have you been so successful on that second level of the defense, but on the first level, it's been very hit and miss? So I don't know. I think that's interesting and confusing as well.
Chris Ballard did mention earlier today when I asked about the quarterback competition that he would guess that both would be productive at some point during the season for the Colts, which I think is a very easy call because, normally one's going in for the other and then the other one's coming back in. So I guess if we follow the same path, there will be some level of production for both of these guys at some point this year, right? That's an easy guess?
Well, I mean, just go by this. When was the last time the Colts played one quarterback wire to wire?
Yeah, no doubt.
Mean, feels like it's been a long time. I'm trying to remember, did Wentz do it? Maybe.
He navigated
Carson
through the
Wentz.
entire COVID thing all the way to the end to where Jim didn't want him to get on the
Right.
plane home after Jacksonville. Yeah, that.
Maybe that's the problem. He did play all 17, but
yeah.
Listen, I would say this though: the next year, that was Matt Ryan and the smorgasbord of quarterbacks. They've not had a single quarterback do it in 3 years, so the odds are high. It's going to happen again, and both guys are going to have to play. And the other thing leads us to a related conversation. He was pressed today a little bit on, like, how real is your interest in these quarterbacks? And maybe not Shedeur Sanders, right? I mean, unless you just want complete chaos, I'm here for it. It would definitely drive a lot of calls, right? You and I would have a ball, right?
Yeah.
But realistically, I think we're talking later, okay? But if you want a quarterback in this draft that's any good, I don't think you can do it much later, okay? I think you got to do it possibly on day 2. So my question would be, what is that a real consideration? And I would argue that it maybe should be.
I would agree with you.
Look,
yes.
I actually do not rule it out, and I don't think it's a bad idea. So I asked him today about it, and he said basically, look, I mean, you have to take a real look at that position every year. He said they did it when Andrew Luck was their quarterback, and that is true. I know that they hosted quarterbacks in top 30 visits back then. They have had Quinn Ewers in here, Tyler Slow. So I mean, I don't know, man. I don't think we can rule it out. I don't think we can rule it out. And I actually think it's the right way to think about this. Look, at minimum, right? At minimum, one of these 2 quarterbacks that's currently on the roster will not be here next year. I mean, more than likely, at least one will not be here, maybe both. Okay? There's a scenario where neither of these guys are here in 2026. So then who's the quarterback? I don't know. Right? So I think it's a really easy case to make. I'm not saying it's a must, but I do think there's a very solid case to make there.
Are you covering the Pacers-Bucks game 2 tomorrow night?
I am.
Well done.
Very excited to do that.
Well
so
done.
I was there over the weekend. Yeah, did game 1. Back tomorrow. Yeah, man. I mean, I mean, it'll be a lot of Damian Lillard talk for me, which is maybe not interesting to the Pacers fan base per se. But I just like being back in the NBA, sphere from time to time. I have fun with it. So those are my roots. You know what I mean? So
hell of a time, great crowd.
I started out covering the NBA.
We saw a great crowd on
Absolutely.
Saturday too. It was especially for a 1:00 getting things started Saturday afternoon crowd. That thing was energy, all energy and electric.
I agree because Easter weekend, you could have been a little bit of a let's sleep in type of crowd, but no, people came ready to roll, man, and I think they're looking forward to putting some heat on the Bucks going back to Milwaukee.
Man, no doubt about that. So we'll see what happens coming up tomorrow night. Stephen Holder's got you covered too. ESPN, ESPN.com, and then the upcoming draft, which gets underway coming up on Thursday with round number 1. Stephen's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We'll look for you at the Fieldhouse coming up tomorrow.
All right, you got it.
Stephen Holder on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. 2 games later on tonight. Pistons-Knicks, that's game number 2. The Knicks up a game in that best-of-7 first-round series. Pistons actually had a lead. Knicks took things over at the beginning of the fourth quarter. 7:30 tonight from Madison Square Garden. Clippers and Nuggets, an overtime win in game 1 in Denver over the Clippers. 1-0 Nuggets in that best-of-7. That tip tonight is at 10 o'clock. More conversation, you and I, coming up on the other side at 239-1070. Location broadcast Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. All opportunities for you to join us. And a big Tuesday night here in downtown Indy with game number 2, Bucks and Pacers. That's coming up tomorrow. Our discussion going on today. Don't go anywhere. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Here's Johnny. David Letterman. Hi, David. I'm Grandpa.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Look, Matt's a good kicker. He's still a good kicker. Matt's still going to be a good kicker in this league. I think a lot of it had to do with Spencer. You know, having Spencer last year gave us a real, insight to his talent level. Then he leaves us and performs at two different teams. You know how hard that is? That's difficult now, to go to two different teams and have to perform. That is not easy. You're working with a totally different operation at both different snapper, different holder, and to go in and be successful. This had more to do with Spencer than it did really with Matt.
No, I think it had everything to do with Matt. And the inaccuracy over 50, and that is a category in which the present, as he mentioned, Spencer, is not kicked. I don't think he's even attempted one from 50, has he? So we shall see. Place kicking discussion a little bit earlier today with Colts general manager Chris Ballard, of course, in front of the draft. That's coming up on Thursday, round number 1. That will take place live from Green Bay. Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland? Who are we talking about here? Either or neither. Either or neither. If you're going to make a call right now, I like that game. Either or neither. Just out of curiosity. I know. JMV, listening to the audio of Ballard explaining his draft process really takes his condescension to the next level. It's like he's talking to a room of 5-year-olds. That is 100% the sound. James.
Looks like the longest field goal Spencer Schrader's ever attempted is 45 yards.
45 yards. So Matt Gay was not accurate enough from length. And as I mentioned, 45 is the line. All right, then. The condescension is funny, though. And listen, that's just a way to say, all right, I hear and I know what's being said. And this is the way that it is. JMV, every time I hear Ballard talking, all I hear is a guy trying to filibuster his way out of explaining his ineptitude. JMV, if Sanders is available, I'm taking him, and trading Richardson. Quarterback is a hell of a lot more important. I don't think they do that, but I do think at some point, I do think they draft it. I just don't think it's going to be in round number 1. I'm going to tell you what, that level of condescension with the lack of results shows an amazing amount of bravado right there. You go, what in the hell are you talking? I don't care if he is talking to a room of dudes that's never done it. Or talking at me on the that's never done it. That is something. JMV, I'll say neither. Colts taking the best player at 14. They're going to take Mitch Evans from Notre Dame in round number 2. Thank you, Jason. Jason goes neither. All right, quickly before I get back to you and some of your calls to close out this show, James, it was The Last of Us last night, episode 2. Mm-hmm. So was Pascal dead? He looked pretty dead.
Yeah.
Is he dead?
Based off of the games, that's what happens in the games. So I would assume that they're going to stick pretty close to the source
So is he
material.
done?
Yeah, probably. I think once his character dies
Seriously?
in the games, he's gone.
He's done.
He's done.
So is this the last? They only going to go 2 seasons for this?
They might. I mean, there's only been 2 games, and it looks like they're covering, each game with a season. So I don't know what their plans are. If they plan on extending it, I don't even know if they're making a 3rd game. I'm assuming they would because it made boatloads of money. But at least from what I understand,
he
he's done.
Pretty damn dead last night.
I think they did it differently than in the game, but they're both, Yeah, he's probably dead for good.
That chick just beat the hell out of him, and then started to beat the hell out of him with a 9-iron after she shot him.
Yep.
What was the whole circumstance there? What happened?
Like in the game?
Yeah. Why did she?
It has something to do, and I haven't actually played the games, but it has something to do with what he did at the end of the first season, where he saves Ellie and kills all those people. I think he killed somebody who was a family member, or that the person who ends up killing him cared about. So it was kind of a revenge killing type thing. Yeah.
That's incredible stuff. That scene was something, though. Like, my daughter is into it now, and I was watching it, and this makes me sound like an old fart and crusty, but I was thinking, wow, that's pretty intense right there. Or as they say in Smoking the Bandit, intense. No, I'm sorry, that was Convoy. Intense.
We did just get a spoiler alert complaint.
Oh, did we really?
I don't know if he was actually complaining.
Well,
but
it was on last night, numbnuts. I mean, hell, I'm sorry you haven't watched it yet, but get with the program.
Also, the game's been out for a minute.
No, I didn't even know. I figured that he was somehow going to be saved, but he was in a bag being dragged by the horse back to the fort or whatever it was. Last night I thought, he looks pretty damn dead to me.
Yeah, this isn't Marvel or Star Wars. I mean, he's probably just dead.
He looks dead.
He's not coming back.
I thought that maybe the broken 9-iron to the neck was probably... That's in terms of WrestleMania, is like the Stone Cold Stunner right there, isn't it? Yeah,
oh, yeah.
That she put the stunner on him. Jeff writes this: Ballard just has to be right all the time, even if he's severely wrong. He thinks he's right. You know, and I'm not suggesting this is the direction that we go or he is going here, but remember George Costanza and Seinfeld. If it's, is it really a lie if you believe it? And I guess we can put it in terms of Chris. Is it really inaccurate if I continue to talk it up? Not quite the same as Costanza and Seinfeld, but not too far off. Has it really been ineffective if I tell you over and over how effective it has been? If I tell you that it isn't? Chris Hart says, thanks for The Last of Us. Spoiler alert, you knob. Well, let me tell you what, numbnuts, Chris. Listen, it was on last night. I can't help it. What the hell were you watching?
I'm just glad you started getting the name right.
Numbnuts?
No,
I've always gotten that one right. No, The Last of Us, and not The Rest of Us. I like Pedro Pascal, right? Pedro.
Yep, Pedro Pascal.
I think for a long time I've called him Pablo. Pedro Pascal. I like him. Very good actor. I don't know what else he's in. Is he in anything else?
Oh, yeah, he was in Game of Thrones.
I haven't seen that.
Is in The Mandalorian.
People promised me nudity and violence, and every time I watched it, all I got was a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue, like this show right here. We need more nudity on this show.
It's going to be in Fantastic Four.
I'm not watching that nerdery, let me tell you. I haven't seen any of these comics. Not one.
Really?
I'm trying to think.
Did you even see Iron Man when that came out in 2008?
I have not seen 1 second of Iron Man.
Wow.
I think I have to go all the way back to the first and the second Batman in the night, like the end of the 80s, into the 90s. I think I saw, where was Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze?
Oh, that was Batman and Robin.
Or Uma Thurman was Poison Ivy.
Also Batman and
That's
Robin.
That's the last one I saw right there.
One of the worst movies ever made of all time. Hilariously bad.
Uma Thurman was Poison Ivy. I haven't seen any of them. None of this stuff.
That's
not
one. That's not a good one to leave it off on.
I haven't seen Ant-Man or...
Ant-Man's okay.
Fantastic Four. What is that? The Human Torch?
Yeah, Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic. He's the stretchy guy. That's who Pedro Pascal's playing. And then I can't remember what the Thing. There's the Thing.
What are they going to do, the Wonder Twins? You ever heard of the Wonder Twins?
I have not.
The Wonder Twin powers activate?
Nope.
Zan and Jaina, I believe, from cartoons. Can somebody tell me when they're going to do the Wonder Twins? Because the dude, they always change form, shape of and form of. And the chick was Jaina, always got to be something really cool. Like, form of a Ferrari. And the dude was always like shape of a pump handle or a toilet flush lever. I mean, it was just, he always got blanked over. He never was anything cool. She was always something cool, and he was like,
and
And
this is the one you're wondering about where the show or movie is.
Form of urination or something. I mean, it just was never anything cool for him. I was just kind of wondering.
And
the dude always got screwed.
I'm so shocked they haven't made a film or series about that.
The Wonder Twins. Would you guys go see a live action film of the Wonder Twins? And then they had this little monkey called Gleek that was with them. And he ruined stuff much like Scrappy Doo ruined Scooby-Doo.
This feels like a comic series that maybe had a run briefly in the 70s, and
It
then
did.
they just buried it forever.
It is buried forever. They were in the Hall of Justice, though. They hung out there. I think the dude was in there because he was good at he just cleaned the place up because he was always like a broom or a mop or a bucket of mop water or something.
Real exciting stuff right there.
Clorox. Quick break. We'll come back. Final time. Hey, on the road later on this week, I want to see you guys all out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Can I count on you? Can I get your RSVP? Busy week for us. I'll explain on the other side, too. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Well, we're waiting.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Wonder Twin powers activate!
Shape of octopus.
Form of an ice unicycle!
What? Did she
Come
say?
on, Jaina. It's up to
Did
us
she
to
say
stop those
shape of
aliens.
testicles? Is that what she said?
I believe
What'd
she
say
said
again?
octopus.
Oh, I thought she said shape of testicles.
No, she said shape of an octopus. And he said...
I would watch that.
He said shape of an ice unicycle, if I'm not mistaken.
What the hell was that? I thought sure she said in that. Play that back again. She said shape of testicles. Thank you.
Wonder Twin powers activate!
Shape of octopus.
Form
She
of
said
an
testicles.
ice unicycle!
She absolutely does not say testicles.
Oh,
Come on, Jaina. It's up to us to stop.
Especially because I'm watching the video and she turns into a giant octopus.
okay. I'm going to tell you, though, if they did a film and she got to shape of I'm watching that. I may go.
You know Disney would never make that.
Come on. It's like an R-rated. That'd be great.
That'd be X-rated, I
That'd
think.
be something like the Fairley Brothers would have came up with in the 90s. Shape of testicles. Form of an ice unicycle. What in the hell is that? See, I always loved it because when they came up with these cartoons in the 70s, everybody was stoned. All of the children's entertainment that was hatched idea-wise and then created in the 1970s, it was done under the heavy influence of drugs.
They were at the very least stoned. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some acid or something going on with them.
Love that. Shape of testicles? What? All right, hey, great show today. I'm sorry. If you call tomorrow, everybody on hold today, tell James that I told you to call back tomorrow. I'll get right to you because I did not know we had to run as quickly as we do. Actually, I did. But I did not know, I'll tell you that, we had to go as quickly as we did today. Eddie Gill, Pacers TV. Pacers TV, again, NBA TV tomorrow night is going to be blacked out for Game 2. Pacers TV for you tomorrow night. Eddie Gill, Stephen Holder, podcast 1075, thefan.com. We'll get you set for Game 2 tomorrow beginning at 3, and your calls, I promise, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great night.